Vote for Biden, please. Just end our national nightmare. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So what I'm going to do today is, in case you haven't noticed, I'm pre-filming quite a lot of videos, which is why I'm still in the same damn t-shirt. Vote for Biden, please. Just end our national nightmare. If you're an American and you're eligible to vote, please vote for Biden. But that's why I'm basically wearing the same outfit and makeup and hair and all that. Well, I'm wearing the same hair because this is my haircut and I always wear this hair this way. I don't know. I'm tired. This is like my sixth video that I filmed today, or at least started filming today, you know? I don't know. But what we're going to do is we are going to do some book recapturing, I guess. So, as I said back in my first video, my BookTube newbie tag, I haven't read that much. In fact, I had only read not that many books. I don't know. We'll count them later. I haven't read that many books. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the first 5 books I read this year. And then today, but in a separate video, I'm going to talk about the next 6 books I read from January to September. So that way in October, or last day of October, or whenever I film that video, I'll be able to do a proper October wrap up. But what I want to do is I want to talk about the books that I read either before I started my channel or at the very, very early stages of when I started my channel. So for example, I think I started this channel in September and I only read 1 book in September, so there wasn't really anything for me to wrap up. But thus far in October, I've read 5 books and it's only halfway through, so I'll actually have stuff to talk about. So that's what we're doing today. So I'm going to tell you about the first 5 books I read at the beginning of this year, starting with Stephen King, The Outsider. So, what the hell is this book even about? I read it in January. It's the first book I read in the year. And basically what it's about is it is about a child was murdered by a popular school teacher. But there's like evidence, there's like DNA, people saw him at the crime scene, yada, yada, yada. But the thing is that there's also substantial evidence that shows the teacher was in a completely different location at the time of the murder and like another town. So it's one of those like, who did it? Da, da, da. Did he do it? Did he not do it? And then there's a speculative element to it. And then it focuses on trying to solve the crime. So that's not a best summation of it, but this book was good. I will say it was good. Don't read it unless you have read the Bill Hodges trilogy because it does spoil that a little bit. So if you're interested in the Bill Hodges trilogy, read that first. I read that last year. I enjoyed it, but I also that was also centered around detectives, and I like detective stories. I gave The Outsider 4 out of 5 stars. I think I enjoyed the pacing of it. It moves really, really quickly, as do a lot of Stephen King books. But I will say, I continue to be amazed by how long of a career Stephen King has had and how many books he has written, and he still cannot stick a landing. Stephen King, I enjoy his books, but I have always had issues with the endings of his books. They never sit quite right with me. And I will say I enjoyed it, but there was a lot of unanswered questions. And for me, that just kind of was just weird, to be honest. And I'm not one of those people that needs every single question to be answered, but it seemed like Stephen King thought he answered every single question, and it was kind of like, no, I'm still a little confused on this. I hope there's a sequel. The reason that you're supposed to read the Bill Hodges trilogy first is because a character from the Bill Hodges trilogy shows up in The Outsider, and it does spoil the ending of the Bill Hodges trilogy. I like the character that showed up in The Outsider from the Bill Hodges trilogy, so I hope Stephen King writes more books around her. And I also read The Outsider before watching the HBO limited series, and I hope HBO does more with that character because I just enjoy that character quite a lot. So like I said, 4 out of 5 stars. At the end of the day, it's just not very memorable Stephen King. Like I remember the basic like twist and stuff like that. But at the same time, I have read better Stephen King. So, and then in February, I read 4 books, which at that point in my reading career was pretty impressive because, as you will see, there was a period between March and April where I didn't read a single book. So I didn't read a single book in March, April, or May. So reading 4 books in February was pretty impressive. The first book I read, and probably my favorite of the first half of the year, if not one of my favorites of the year, was The Five: The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Robin-Hold. So this is a nonfiction book. It centers around the 5 canonical victims of Jack the Ripper. And it tells each of their biographies. And what I liked about this was, at first when I picked this up, I was afraid that, well, I wasn't afraid, that sounds like such a weird way to say, but I was concerned that it would be boring because it would be repetitive. And Robin-Hold does a really good job of making each of the stories actually independent and actually sound like different stories, because they are different stories. I'm impressed with the research because this reads as one of those, Jack the Ripper is like such, to me anyways, one of those historical moments that you know so well because it's so ingrained in American culture anyways, or at least in Western culture. Jack the Ripper is a well-known serial killer, at least in my experience. So you know a lot about him. So when I was reading this and I was reading stuff about his victims, I thought what I knew about his victims was all there was to know, because there wasn't a whole lot to know about them. But Robin-Hold really did her research, and she really presented the lives of these women the best that she could. And it really put a whole lot of new perspectives on it, in my opinion anyways. She doesn't talk about Jack the Ripper, except for very briefly, but she is very clear that her focus is on the victims, not on him. So she doesn't speculate on who it is. She doesn't even go into really deep details of the murder. The most she gets to was the death of Mary Jane Kelly at the end, because it was the most horrific. But I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was perfect. It moves really fast for a nonfiction, and it was just amazing. I highly recommend it if you are interested in the subject matter. After that, I read Miracle Creek, which is about a family that has immigrated from Korea and has started a treatment center for people with disabilities, ranging from autism to severely disabled, mentally disabled, to infertility. I would say My sister is special needs. She's autistic. And there was nothing in here that was offensive or triggering to me, but it was also one of the few books I've read that talked about what it's like being a parent or a sibling to somebody with special needs, whether it be autism or even more severely mentally disabled. And so I think it appealed to my nature on that side of things. So I think I can't really give a good unbiased review on if this is harmful to people who have autism or are mentally disabled in some sort of way. So I'll just say that right now. It felt like it spoke to me because it tackled a lot of the conflicting feelings you have being a caretaker to somebody with autism. But at the same time, it also tackled that autism is a spectrum and it's not a one-size-fits-all label kind of thing. So I would recommend, if you have any sensitivities when it comes to talking about the frank nature of autism, to read other reviews on it, especially from people that are autistic and can speak to it. Miracle Creek by Angie Kim is a courtroom drama, which I love. I love courtroom dramas. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which is pretty standard for a criminal trial novel. I would say I didn't see the ending coming, so the twist was unexpected. And the main characters range from, I would say actually, most of the main characters I liked or felt for. And I would say that my only disappointment was one character not really getting his comeuppance like I thought he should. I don't really know how to get into it without going into spoilers, and this isn't something I really want to spoil. But at the end of the day, it's a good book. Recommend it. Recommend it. So after Miracle Creek, I read The Lost Man by Jane Harper. I have read Jane Harper's other 2 books. She recently came out with her 4th book, and I haven't haven't had the chance to pick it up yet, but I will. I love Jane Harper's writing. She writes very atmospheric in a way. She is she's from Australia. She's an Australian writer, and I feel like I have been to Australia just by reading her. This is a family drama, which is more of my pace, which I kind of love. And it's about 3 brothers, and one of the brothers has died mysteriously. And it's basically a hunt to figure out how the brother died. And I will say, throughout all this, I really didn't have a theory. I was just reading it for the writing's sake. It kept me engaged. It is slow. So I think this got labeled as a thriller, and it's not a thriller, but I know it appeared in the Goodreads Choice Awards for one of the best thrillers, and it's not really a thriller. It's not, but I also don't know what other category I would stick it in. But I would say, if you like familial drama, pick this up. But if you need something that is fast-paced and constantly on the move, this isn't it. That's something from Jane Harper. I've noticed that with Jane Harper, a lot of her books have sections where you could just take it out and nothing would change. Which sounds like a really weird thing to say, but I gave this 5 stars because, again, I really like Jane Harper's writing, and I think that moved it along for me. So, yeah. And the last book I'm going to talk about in this video is The Holdout by Graham Moore. This is another courtroom drama. The gimmick here is that it's based around the jury of a court case that happened like 10 years ago. It was a high profile case, and people are obsessed with whether the jury made the right decision or not. Like, some people think they didn't, some people think they did. This is focused on the 12 jurors reuniting and getting back together for like a media blitz that's re-examining the case. And one of the jurors was very passionate about the defendant not being guilty and persuaded the other jurors to vote not guilty. But one of the jurors is very much convinced that they got it wrong and the guy did do it. And that juror ends up dead. And the main character, who's the jurist that convinced everybody that the defendant was guilty, is now suspected of killing her fellow juror. So basically that juror has to go on the hunt to clear her name, as well as to definitively prove that the jury got it right in the first court case. I gave this 4 out of 5, which is 4 out of 5 stars, which is pretty common for a courtroom drama. The thing my biggest issue with this was the ending. The ending killed it for me. The ending just didn't seem logical whatsoever, and it didn't make any sense why the characters made the actions that they did. And I'm talking about the side characters. The main character, I kind of understood what she was going for. But yeah. So those are the 5 books I read between January and February. There wasn't a stinker among them. I really, really enjoyed them. I actually don't think there has been any, well, never mind. There has been a book that I hated that will pop up in my October wrap up, but that's not what this is about. So the first 5 books of the year, it was good. I enjoyed them. And the other 2 I borrowed from the library and I don't have. So, sad times. But please stay tuned for part 2 that's coming up. Bye.